We've got a new look to the solo carry list for the majority of roles in 26.13 as Syndra slots in for mid, Tristana jumps in for ADC, and Nasus slides in for jungle as we provide you guys with 3 of the best champions that you can play for every single role. Throughout the Rift, 5 distinct species engage in a daily struggle for survival. The top laner, exiled to the furthest reaches of the Rift, forced to survive alone in the most unforgiving territory. The jungler, perpetually torn. Should he hunt or should he feed? Every choice, the wrong one. The mid laner, keeper of the Rift's most fertile ground, forced to defend his territory from constant invasion, even from his own kind. The ADC, a fragile creature in his most vulnerable life stage. He needs only time, yet his pack is determined to ensure he never gets it. And the support, the most tragic creature on the Rift, whose species' survival rests entirely in the hands of others. And yet, despite their struggles, a single discovery could change their fates forever. SkillCapped's brand new Season 16 Essentials courses for every role, designed to guide you through every stage of life on the Rift, from the very first wave to the final team fight. Each course split into easy and digestible chapters, each focusing entirely on what that species needs to thrive, the exact pain points, the exact fixes, the exact path to the rank you were always meant to reach. And remarkably, you can do it all completely risk-free, as should you somehow fail to climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service, you get every penny back. Get your one-time exclusive discount using the link in the description or pinned comment below. So starting things off up in the top lane and back in the top 3 for another patch is going to be Kayle. So pretty much every other role has seen a significant meta shift lately, but top lane has remained quite stable. Kayle just continues to perform patch after patch, and she's the best pure carry that you can play right now. The best part about Kayle is that if you're new to her, then you can still win through being efficient with your farm and scaling into her level 16. But once you get more advanced on the pick, then you can actually threaten for solo kills early on in a lot of matchups. Everyone always thinks of Kayle as that monster scaling pick, but her level 1 is so deadly because of her passive attack speed stacking. If the opponent you are up against doesn't have a strong level 1, let's say they are playing Renekton, Garen, Malphite, Sion, or Alawi, what you can do is rush straight for top lane, get into the lane brush, and if the enemy tries to walk into that brush, then just run them down and kill them. Flash with Ghost as your summoner spell combination is really underrated on Kayle, and it makes this level 1 all-in play way more deadly because you'll be sticking onto your target a lot better. Overall, to get the most out of Kayle, you have to take advantage of her level 1, so limit testing and not being afraid to fight early on is really important. Matchup-wise for Kayle, she doesn't like playing into champs who can get onto her really easy and chunk her out before she can trade back, so banning out Yone or Aurelia is good value. And then for Kayle's build, it's going to be a Nashor's Tooth Rush into Dusk and Dawn 2nd and Rabadon's 3rd, followed by Press the Attack for the Keystone Rune. And then back again as the best tank that you can play for the majority of ranks, it's going to be Malphite. Despite being a tank, Malphite still possesses incredible solo carry power due to his teamfight presence and ability to deal pretty solid damage while building full tank. Setting up kill angles with Malphite in lane is so foolproof because it takes no skill at all to poke with Q. Q poke followed by Comet proc, and you've got the enemy to around half health after a few of them to where you can then just look for an all-in play. The only major issue that Malphite runs into early on in lane is he's susceptible to running out of mana, so you have to be wary of Q usage during the first few levels. A good rule of thumb is to only use your Q if both Comet and Mana Flow Band are available. If both are down, then a naked Q is not worth the mana expenditure early in lane. A strategy we really like that helps with Malphite's mana issues is going towards Frozen Heart as his rush item. If you're in a physical damage matchup, then rush Frozen Heart instead of Sunfire Aegis. By going Frozen Heart, you get to pick up a Sapphire Crystal, and that provides you with 300 mana. Malphite Q costs 80 mana with 3 points in the spell, so this means you'll be able to use the spell 3 more times, which is really big. As long as you can use Q without running out of mana, then it's the most broken brain-dead poke tool in the game in melee versus melee matchups, so why not maximize its potential by picking up an early Sapphire Crystal and going towards Frozen Heart. Build-wise on Malphite, don't get baited into rushing Sunfire or Hollow Radiance. If you're against AD, it should be Frozen Heart, and against an AP laner, rush Kaenic Rookern. After that, you go into Sunfire or Hollow Radiance, but they shouldn't be your rush items as building towards a Bomby Cinder is really useless in lane for Malphite. Comet is the keystone you can take in every single game and be completely fine, but if you really want to min-max, then you can go Grasp into melee matchups where the enemy is more auto-reliant, like Tryndamere, Aurelia, or Fiora, and you can look to trade autos more aggressively immediately whenever your W is up. And of course, it's really no secret that Malphite has one must-ban matchup that you need to get rid of in every game, and it's Sylas. So always prioritize your ban on him if you intend on blind picking Malphite. So continuing to be a complete monster of a pick for the lower ranks and rounding out the top 3 for top lane is Garen. Garen is the most reliable fighter champion that you can play right now, and he's even more adaptable than ever. No matter the game, if you have flash and are available with Garen, then you have the ability to impact things in a major way. Flash Q into E and then R on a squishy target in the mid to late game is going to 100 to 0 them, and it takes no skill at all. This combo has become even more deadly as of recent against squishies because of the fact players have discovered Ghostblade is a viable alternative to Phantom Dancer. Ghostblade slotted in second is extremely powerful on Garen when playing into more squishy comps, as you will have stronger upfront burst potential. Where Phantom Dancer still makes sense is if you're against a more bruisery or tanky enemy team, because the lethality from Ghostblade is much less valuable than the crit from Phantom Dancer. If the enemy team is stacking armor, you will need more extended fights to win out, so the attack speed and crit from PD will be of better value. Storm Raider's Surge is also quite underrated on Garen right now, as when playing into a ranged top laner, you can run a setup that involves Storm Raiders, Boots of Swiftness, and Ghostblade so that you can close the gap and stick onto them so much easier. Into a melee matchup though, you are still going to want to prioritize Conqueror. Matchup wise for Garen, Kayle continues to be the most optimal ban, as Garen players are quite literally winning less than 45% of the time in the matchup all throughout Season 16. If you're a jungler who is currently ranked Emerald or below, then you should be spamming Nasus right now. Nasus jungle has been great for a while and has started gaining in popularity over the past patch due to a few pros picking him up. What makes Nasus jungle so great for the lower ranks is the fact you can be incredibly consistent with your approach in each game. There's no crazy early gank threat with Nasus, so because of this, the best play is almost always going to be to farm as efficiently as possible and get your 6 before the enemy jungler. If you can manage this, then once you're 6 with Nasus, there is no jungler in the game who will beat you in the 1v1 if you are 6 and they are still level 5. You're going to see a few different build variations going around on Nasus, as you can rush Protoplasm Harness or Trinity Force. Protoplasm gives you more durability, while Trinity Force heavily amps your damage, so it really depends on the enemy comp as to what you run. A general rule of thumb is that since you go into Iceborne Gauntlet after rushing Protoplasm, this core works best in the teams that are heavier AD. If the enemy team has more magic damage, then going Trinity Force into Protoplasm and Spirit Visage is the more optimal route. And if it's a very mixed damage enemy team, then you can just base it off of whether you want more durability or damage. You don't really have to worry about banning a specific jungler right now, so instead, allocating your ban toward a meta support who's going to offer very strong peel power is a good idea. So Seraphine or Thresh are two of the better options based on the current meta. So making his way back into the jungle meta after recent buffs and a top 3 jungler for 26.13 is Wukong. What makes Wukong extremely powerful for solo queue is his ability to find engage plays from angles that no other jungler would be able to. For example, since Wukong W allows you to traverse over walls and also provides stealth, you can hop over the dragon wall if the enemy team is on dragon for a surprise engage, or you can be sitting in the river brush and hop over the mid lane wall to flank them from behind if the enemy team is overextended. There's just so many ways in which you can approach fights with Wukong, and it's just so easy for him to start fights compared to other junglers, which makes him really consistent if you can get any lick of an early advantage. And not only is his engage very sneaky, but once he's in melee range of his opponent, everything is point and click, so there's no way for you to mess up your engage plays. If you're playing Lee Sin, you can miss Q. If you're playing Sylas, you can miss E. If you're playing Viego, you can miss W, but Wukong never has to worry about missing his CC, as his R gives the instant knockup as long as you're in range. Wu is also an incredible pick in the current meta due to the severe lack of AP junglers in meta. Diana and Sylas are the only AP junglers with decent play rates right now, so if you ban either of them out, it's highly likely you'll be in a physical damage matchup, which favors Wukong tremendously since his passive gives him bonus armor. The core build is the exact same in every game with Wukong, as you rush Trinity Force into Sundered Sky, and then you're taking Conqueror for the Keystone rune. And then to round out the top 3 for jungle in 26.13 is going to be the best tank jungler, as we've got Rammus. Rammus is just criminally underrated right now for solo queue, as he's a really free counter pick into the majority of meta junglers. We just don't see a ton of AP junglers in meta right now, as Karthus, Elise, Gwen, Fiddle, and Nidalee are all sitting at some of the lowest play rates for any champs in the role. We are seeing a bit of Diana and Sylas, but even then, they aren't that bad at all for Rammus, because he likes playing into champs that need to dive into him to be effective. If a Sylas or Diana tries to dive on you in the mid game, then you just point and click taunt them and your team bursts them out before they can do anything. Lilia is the one AP jungler who has a semi-decent play rate who you may want to consider banning, because she can kite around a lot better and doesn't have to come right into you to be effective. Lee, Graves, Viego, Kayn, and Nocturne are the 5 most played junglers in solo queue right now, and every one of them is physical damage, so there are so many good Rammus angles right now. For the build on Rammus, you are rushing Thornmail in every game, and then second item depends on the enemy comp. If they are heavier AD, then go Sunfire Aegis, and if they have 2 or more magic damage threats, the most common situation situation would be an AP jungle and AP mid, then you can grab Hollow Radiance. Jock's Show, Deadman's Plate, Randuin's Omen, and Protoplasm Harness are all good later game pickups depending on the enemy comp. So a brand new addition to the mid lane solo carries for 26.13 is coming off some massive buffs from last patch as we've got Syndra. So Syndra's early game just got so much better with Q having an additional 10 damage and base health going up by 20. These changes have turned Syndra from a rather average mid lane mage to now one of the best in the game, so she's extremely worthwhile to pick up right now. One thing that makes Syndra so good for solo queue and allows her to stand out compared to many other mages is her ability to control choke points extremely well and punish mispositioning in an instant. Throwing Syndra Q down in chokes and using that as a zone is just so easy to do, yet massively impactful because if the enemy tries to walk in, you get a free stun, and these picks around objectives can be absolutely game winning. The two downsides to Syndra is that she is more skill shot reliant, so you can't expect immediate results with her, and she lacks any mobility spell, so those two factors combine to make her quite vulnerable into highly mobile assassins. Fizz and Katarina are the two matchups that you're going to want to try and avoid when picking Syndra, and with Fizz being an OP tier mid at the moment, he would be our recommended ban. There are two common ways in which you can build Syndra, but our challenger experts really like the more haste heavy setup as opposed to the one-shot build. Luden's into Shadow Flame gives you more upfront burst, but Blackfire Torch into Cosmic Drive, which is the build we prefer, is a lot more consistent and gives you more margin for error. You get 45 haste from the Blackfire Cosmic Core as opposed to just 10 from Luden's into Shadow Flame, so if you miss your stun in a skirmish with Syndra while running the Luden's build, then you are a sitting duck for a much longer duration. Being able to spam out stuns from range is extremely impactful for solo queue, so we definitely like the trade-off of having a bit less damage for the more constant spell usage. There's even a more niche setup that our challenger mid laner Strompist has been playing that involves taking Imperial Mandate as a rush item, so for more info on that, check out our new free build site that will give you the complete rundown on the setup. So a staple in the mid lane top 3 for the past few patches now, and back again for 26.13 is Fizz. Fizz is straight up the best assassin that you can pick right now, and he fits even better into the meta due to recent indirect changes. It has actually been all indirect changes that have made Fizz stronger, as he never received any direct buffs. First, Lich Bane got buffed, and then we've seen Syndra priority rise quite a bit, so a lot more incentive to have Fizz as a champ you can pull out right now. Fizz just loves playing into these immobile mages because it makes it a lot easier to land his R, and a lot of mages are skill shot reliant, so Fizz can dodge at least one of their spells with his E, which gives him a ton of outplay potential in those kinds of matchups. There are just two champs in meta that you have to worry about when picking Fizz right now, and they are Sylas and Lissandra. Sylas just got buffed last patch and is much better now, so it's a more annoying matchup for Fizz because of Sylas' outplay potential and his ability to steal your R and find long-range catch plays himself. Lissandra is just extra annoying because of her point-and-click CC, as you can't outplay that with your mobility, so either champ is a good ban right now. Core build on Fizz really doesn't change at all from game to game, as you're running Lich Bane into Zhonya's as the core. If you really don't think you need Zhonya's and just want more one-shot, then you can go Shadow Flame second, but Zhonya's just heavily amps the skirmish power of Fizz, so unless you're really confident in your Fizz, just stick with Zhonya's in all games. And then a champ who has seen a really nice indirect boost recently, and even directly buffed for 26.13 is Vex. So Vex is always a great champ to have in your champion pool when picks like Sylas and Fizz come into meta. With the exception of Syndra, we are also seeing a ton of mages become weaker recently, with Orianna and Ryze nerfed. Cassiopeia is nerfed for 26.13, so less mages in meta is great for Vex. Vex is always going to be a godlike pick into any higher mobility mid, so what we're seeing right now is great for her. Into Yasuo, Akali, Yone, LeBlanc, Sylas, and Fizz, Vex wins more than 52% against all of them, so her value in solo queue is really high because you run into those champs quite often. If you were to use a ban on a mage for this patch, then we would definitely recommend Syndra with how powerful she is now, and it's also really hard for Vex to play out teamfights into Syndra because of the range advantage Syndra has with her stun. For the build on Vex, you are going to be running a Luden's Rush followed by Storm Surge and Shadow Flame in almost every single game. There are certain games where an earlier Zhonya's may be warranted, but build doesn't really change a whole lot for Vex. And then Keystone is super straightforward as well, with Electrocute being the no-brainer pickup. Kicking off the top 3 for ADC in 26.13 is coming off some buffs from last patch, as we've got Tristana. So with Trist receiving those buffs, she is now back in a great spot, and we like her even better due to how the support meta has been trending. There are more melee supports on top of the meta right now as opposed to enchanters, and Trist loves playing with engaged supports because her kill threat in lane becomes incredibly powerful. Tristana has the ability to follow up off of a hook landing better than the majority of ADCs, so Thresh being the most played support in the game right now is great for her. A lot of Trist players are actually building her wrong right now too, so she'd be performing even better if that wasn't the case. Instead of the Collector, you should be taking Hex Optics for your rush item in a lot of your games. The Collector is still good if the enemy team is majority squishy, but if not, then side with Hex Optics. Gluttonous Greaves are also extremely underrated on Tristana. You have the attack speed steroid from Q and take lethal tempo and runes, so that what you can do is rush Hex Optics into Infinity Edge with Gluttonous Greaves as your boots. Flicker Blades will slot in as your third core item later on in the game. Since Tristana wants to be diving in and playing aggressive, banning out a meta support who will limit that potential is a good idea, and therefore Braum is one of the better options right now. And then for our second solo carry ADC of the patch, we've got Xayah. Xayah has been really underrated for a while now, and with Senna and Brand both nerfed for 26.13, we've got Xayah joining the top 3. It was earlier on in the season where Xayah got buffed, and she's been a legit S-tier ADC since. What makes Xayah so great for solo queue is the fact that she has the ability to self-peel dive champs better than most ADCs. If you're tired of playing against Nocturne or Zed and them just diving on you and bursting you down in fights, then Xayah is a really good answer to that. There's an interesting new setup going around on Xayah as well lately that revolves around taking Conqueror for the Keystone instead of Lethal Tempo. The build is also quite unique, as you are rushing Hex Optics into Flicker Blade second and Infinity Edge third. Xayah gets a nice boost of attack speed from her W and Flicker Blade, so by going Conqueror, you've got more burst potential and a stronger E. You can still go for Lethal Tempo into enemy comps that are more tanky, but into squishier teams that you can burst easier, consider taking Conqueror. Early laning is where things can be a bit more tricky to navigate with Xayah, so banning out a strong laning ADC like Caitlyn or Ashe is good value. And then the staple on the solo carry list for ADC for nearly the entire season so far, and our third solo carry of the patch, is Jinx. What sets Jinx apart from most other ADCs is the fact she can legitimately 1v5 fights if she gets a passive proc. The amount of DPS potential that Jinx gains with her passive is so disgusting, and it makes it so that even if you are slightly behind, you can still out-impact the opposing ADC by finding that one kill. Jinx is especially good in the lower ranks where games tend to last longer because her presence around 5v5 Baron or Dragon fights is incredible. Jinx already has the long-range autos from her Q, but when you factor in the bonus range from Hex Optics as well, it gives her even more safety and chase down potential after you land that first kill. You gain 100 range for 8 seconds after scoring a kill with Hex Optics, and Jinx Q range puts her at 725, so you have 825 range in fights while also moving around super fast, so it's extremely oppressive. The core build for Jinx consists of a Hex Optics rush and a Phantom Dancer second and Infinity Edge third, while Lethal Tempo is the best Keystone rune. Despite Nocturne getting nerfed recently, he still holds a high play rate in the jungle, so using your ban on him so you're not having to deal with him constantly diving on you in fights is ideal. So a support we have already had rated very highly over the recent patches, and getting stronger for 26.13 is Seraphine. Seraphine will receive an indirect buff because of Imperial Mandate gaining power. Riot has buffed Mandate in a couple of different ways, so it's definitely an item you should consider running on Seraphine into comps that are more melee heavy. Into teams that have longer range poke, going for the heavier healing build of Echoes of Helia and Whispering Circlet still makes sense, but when champs need to come into you to be effective, that's where Mandate will have the most value. In order to proc the Mandate passive, you need to land your E or R with Seraphine, and it's much harder to do that against ranged champs who are sitting back more. So here's a look at the two core builds you can run. Take Solstice Slay, Imperial Mandate, and Rylai's when into more melee heavy comps, and go Dreammaker with Echoes of Helia and Whispering Circlet into more rangy comps. The really nice thing about this Mandate with Rylai's build is that you actually have pretty good damage output for an enchanter. You'll still be providing that utility, but Q poke is actually going to hurt a decent amount, and you're way less reliant on your team to carry as opposed to many other enchanters. In regards to Seraphine's matchups, she is more vulnerable to long-range catch, being that squishy enchanter, so banning out Pike or Blitz is good value. So the best melee engaged support that you can play right now, and our second solo carry of the patch, is Leona. Leona is one of the best supports in the game at being able to start fights, which makes her extremely oppressive if you get an early advantage. The long-range catch from Leona R gives her some of the best gank assist and ability to punish enemies mispositioning in an instant. Something that's really cool about Leona is that she has 3 different item upgrades that are all viable. Celestial is great if you want more tankiness, Solstice Slay is amazing to amplify snowball power, and Bloodsong is really strong if you intend on roaming. Because of Leona's W though, Celestial is a bit overrated in a lot of spots, as it is Leona's worst performing rush item. You already have pretty good tankiness from W and Aftershock, so unless you are the solo frontliner on your team, Solstice Slay and Bloodsong should be your higher pick rate upgrades. Bandle Pipes is really good as Leona's rush item if you have a traditional ADC, and then Locket and Knight's Vow are generally the best second and third purchases. In regards to Leona's matchups, there are 2 supports who can make things a lot more difficult for you, and they are Braum and Morgana. Both do a good job at really limiting the engaged potential of Leona, so using your ban on one or the other is good value. And then really taking over as the premier hook support in recent patches is Thresh, as he rounds out the top 3 for the role. So every single metric points to Thresh being a cut above right now, as his play rate is the highest for any support in the role, while holding a top 3 win rate as well. Generally, whenever this happens, the champ is bound to be nerfed in the near future, so if you are a Thresh player, then take advantage while you can. The recent item and rune changes helped a ton to push Thresh over the top, as he was already strong before but is on another level now. You can take Aftershock for your keystone on Thresh in every game, but don't sleep on Guardian if you really want to min-max things. things. Guardian is super strong after its recent buff and works great for Thresh in matchups where the enemy team has a lot of all-in power early on. If you're playing against a duo who can jump in aggressively like Tristana Leona or Samira Rel, then consider going Guardian so that your ADC has that extra durability to survive. Aftershock gives you a nice boost in tankiness, but it doesn't help your ADC survive at all, so that's where, especially if your ADC is on a more vulnerable pick who lacks a gap closer and you're also playing into an aggro enemy duo, definitely look to pick up Guardian. Build for Thresh is a lot easier as you're going Solstice Slay with Locket and Knight's Vow in nearly every single game. Matchup wise for Thresh, similar to Leona, champs who can block a lot of damage and really limit your hook threat are who you should consider banning, so Braum is our recommendation in that case. But while lists like these show you what to play, our brand new Season 16 Essentials courses for every role teach you how to win, each designed to walk you through every stage of the game from start to finish, from the exact trading and recall timers you need to win lane, to the mid-game macro decisions 99% of players get completely wrong, all the way to the team fighting tips and tricks challengers abuse to always deal the highest damage possible. Whether you're a top laner in the most unfavorable matchup possible, a mid laner having to deal with everybody in your lane 24/7, a jungler trying to balance ganking with farming, an ADC stuck trying to hard carry with a support who just exists to grief you, or a support that's struggling to carry games on your own. Our Essentials courses are tailor-made to focus on the exact concepts that actually matter for climbing on your role in your elo. Check them out today, completely risk-free, using the link in the pinned comment or description below, as if you don't climb at least 5 divisions, you get every penny back. So that's gonna round everything out for the 26.13 edition of the best solo carries. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.